30. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560. The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Eric Adams is becoming a more interesting political figure these days. Ever since Trump said something nice to him at the Al Smith dinner in New York, he's been more outspoken about the silliness coming from his party. First of all, he said, I don't think Trump is a fascist when he was asked the question, and he went down the line on that. And then yesterday he was asked basically the same question again, and he's really tiring of it now.
And they're talking about these real problems we're having. And with all that's going on to everyday New Yorkers, we're asking questions that is someone a fascist or is someone a Hitler. That's insulting to me. That is insulting. And I'm not going to engage in that. Everyone needs to turn down the rhetoric. Because after Election Day, we still have to be the United States and not the divided states. And so if people can't understand there are real issues facing New Yorkers, and I just find it just humiliating that what everyday mom and pops are doing and going through across this country, that here we are having this conversation about this silly item. So I refuse to participate in that. I'm going to fight for New Yorkers like I've done for years, and whomever can understand that, they're not in the streets. When I'm at these town halls, talking to people there, they're not asking me these silly questions. We are in this bubble, you know, and I know you guys really believe these stories you're writing. It gives you a lot of clicks. It's exciting and give you headlines. But this is not what New Yorkers and Americans are dealing with, folks. They are scared of their future. Someone needs to stand up and say enough of this. Tone down the rhetoric, let people hear the facts, let them vote, and let's decide what the next 4 years are going to be for our city. And that's my position. I cannot make it any clearer.
Maybe the 100,000 people in and around Madison Square Garden on Sunday had some influence on him, too. You know, it's a lot of people. I mean, New York's a big city, but it's representative of something, too. And so why go out of your way to alienate people who may not agree with you on the presidential choice?
Let's end this silliness.
If you're the mayor of New York, yeah.
And I have a friend that was there. She said it was electric. I mean, she said it was so positive. It was fun. It was funny. There was, of course, 30 different speakers, and it was an all-day event. But she said there was a lot of joy.
Yeah.
Which there's no joy in the Harris campaign anymore.
Well, Joe Biden's got a message for your friend there at Madison Square Garden.
The Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware, they're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization of seen as unconscionable, and it's un-American. It's totally contrary to everything we've done.
The only garbage out there is his supporters. As we've talked about earlier, we've gone from garbage to Nazi to deplorable to Nazi to garbage. I mean, garbage may be worse than deplorable, but it's
pretty bad.
It's not. I don't think it's worse than Nazi. But anyway, Joe Biden did a nice job of distracting people's attention away from Kamala Harris's closing argument on the mall last night. It's interesting development on their side. For more on this and other matters, pleased to be joined by Republican Senator from Indiana, Mike Braun, who is also the nominee for governor, the Republican nominee for governor of Indiana. He's on the ballot on Tuesday as well. Senator Braun, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, good to be back on.
So the latest and greatest pronouncement from Joe Biden, and really to Eric Adams' point, I mean, pick an ad hominem that you want to address, garbage, Nazi, deplorable, so on.
It's interesting because in my own race, they love the IST words, extremist you could put in there, insurrectionist,
Oh, sure.
racist, which they threw around so casually. I think that's all starting to come back. Of course, Eric is embattled in his own office there, and it probably feels similar to what Trump's been feeling, since he came onto the stage. And I think the American public's getting sick and tired of it. When your only argument from that perch of moral superiority is the kind of campaign they're running, it's made of nothing, and it doesn't address the real issues out there. And I'm feeling good that probably 10 days, a couple weeks ago, it was clear that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz aren't leaders of the free world. And now that they're on display, and that was a switcheroo, that was the opposite of democracy, people are smart, and they're putting two and two together. And I think it's going to be a good day for Trump. I think we're going to take the Senate back, and if Trump does well, we'll get the House back, and gubernatorial and all down ballot races will benefit accordingly.
What's going on in Indiana? I mean, obviously Indiana's going to go for Trump, but that's not the end of the story. You're a race for governor, which I think you'll win comfortably. But there are swing races or real potential pickup opportunities. We've been focused on one in Northwest Indiana, of course, with Randy Niemeyer, just because if Niemeyer can beat Mervan, I mean, that's in Lake County, Indiana. That would be something.
Well, Jennifer Ruth Green got close. National money had to come in the last round. I think it's been 94 years since there's been a Republican in the first congressional district. In the region, I spent a lot of time up there because it kind of epitomizes the new Republican Party made up of entrepreneurs, small businesses, blue-collar workers. And there's not a congressional district that would be described more closely than the first, and it's moving in the right direction. You got a lot of refugees coming in from Illinois, and I spent a lot of time up there. So I feel good about what we're going to do. I don't think there's been a Senate or gubernatorial race that's been as close as what our polling shows, which is close to even, and generally had been a 10 to 15-point differential. So it's reflected up there as well.
So what's your closing statement and your closing argument to Indianans?
I think they call them Hoosiers.
Hoosiers.
Yeah.
Did I call them Indianans? Oh,
Yeah.
my God. I'm sorry. My parents did both go to Purdue, so please excuse me.
I think the closing argument for us has been, if you want a practical problem solver, a conservative that's entrepreneurial, that's how we're going to fix things in this country. I think state by state, Harris and Walz represent more from the top down, big government, and hell, they're not smart enough to spend less than they take in, and we're borrowing a couple $1 trillion annually now. It was half that just 6 years ago. So I think on the issues, and Trump stayed pretty focused. What was it like pre-COVID? There's no comparison, and what they're trying to sell us is more big government and no real results for the 4 years they've been running the show. We don't want that to come into Indiana, and I think that's resonated.
And at the national level, I mean, I assume you're still involved with the efforts to gain Republican seats in the Senate. Your colleagues or potential colleagues in the Midwest, some very interesting races, very close races, Hovde in Wisconsin and Rogers in Michigan and Moreno in Ohio. What's your feeling?
A lot better than what it was post-DNC. They were so relieved when they dumped Biden. It was like they levitated up 5 to 7 points, and that was true. Trump's lead in Indiana was 14. It got compressed to 7 or 8. Down ballot races like mine were in the mid to high single digits. We're in the margin of error. Same dynamic across the country. So if this momentum keeps moving in the right direction, and to me it shifted a couple of weeks ago, we're going to get the Senate back, it looks like, nearly certainly, because we'll pick up West Virginia, and now Montana is outside the margin of error, so that gives us 51. Trump does well, and we keep defining it kind of like I described a moment ago. I think we get the House back and could pick up to maybe 3 to 5 Senate seats instead of just 2. Trump wins with some margin to spare, and that's the way it feels to me right now.
I mean, I don't want to measure the drapes or anything like that, but we do have to think about Senate leadership since McConnell's not going to be around, and I know it's contingent on the outcome of some of these races, but generally speaking, I mean, do you think the caucus is ready for a conservative reformer who is not sort of a big government beltway mechanic like McConnell was? That is willing to be as aggressive as Trump is indicating he would be on things like border security? I mean, is that going to be, if Republicans are in the majority, are we going to have problems getting things moving in the Senate, as is sometimes the case?
Well, 3 are running for it. My good friend Rick Scott, who turned Florida around before he became a senator, I'm standing right next to him when he threw his hat in the ring, when there was no preparation other than he was going to make a statement a couple years ago. He got 10 votes. And I think enough senators have come in that round where they were probably pro something different. He could be in the driver's seat. And then it depends on the other 2 individuals that are running, what would happen on a second ballot. I mean, possibly Rick could win it on a first ballot. It's a secret ballot when you do it. I won't be voting on it because it'll be the new Congress that does that, the new Senate.
Right.
But I'm optimistic that we can get close. And if that happens, then you're going to see the biggest indication of house cleaning at the national level. It'll still be like turning a big freight liner around in the ocean, because it's been this entrenched in kind of a deep state, big bureaucracy, borrow and spend for 4 to 5 decades now. So, but it's possible. It's going to be closer every 2 years, and sooner or later, those there will demand that something changes other than what we've been dished up by the folks running the place over the last several decades.
Are you concerned about Senator Ted Cruz? I heard him during an interview yesterday, and that Chuck Schumer and George Soros has spent $100 million and more, probably even more this morning, to try and get his opponent elected so that they can maintain control of the Senate. Have you talked to him at all? Are you concerned about the election results for him?
Ted's in a group of about 5 or 6 of us that meet on generally Tuesday mornings, a broader group that does on Monday evenings when we're in session. And he's in a state that's, it's our biggest Republican state, but it's not a margin of a New York or California or even Illinois. It's getting more urbanized, and as a result, his race is going to be tighter than what it should be. I think he'll win, and I think Texas, of course, will go for Trump, but Florida's gaining redness. Texas is slightly losing it, and you got to remember, New York, California, and Illinois have huge margins. Good news is Pennsylvania's starting to wobble, and it's wobbling in a way that would be purple-red as opposed to purple-blue. A lot of moving parts out there, and I think common sense and the results of bad governance rule what happens down the road.
Yeah, there's another Senate race, McCormick versus Casey. That's in play too. Wanted to just check in with you. Last time we spoke, we talked a bit about Logansport, Indiana, having an influx of migrants, and being another small Midwestern town. There seems to be a growing number that is beset by this influx of people from other countries. And just see if you had any update on that and what's going on, generally speaking, at the state level.
They are enterprisers on things they want to do. And, of course, that is temporary protected status, which is legal. And when those numbers are dumped into a town of like 18,000, there's no way local services or job markets can support it. So that's the other tool, other than open border, crassly calculated that it all ends up turning into voters down the road. I think that's a big miscalculation. But for Springfield, Ohio, Logansport, Indiana, that's just another way they push that kind of approach. And I think that's on trial here in this election as well. So I think Hoosiers and folks that live in Logansport are probably going to be voting largely for Trump.
Mike Braun, a Republican senator from Indiana, soon to be the next Republican governor of Indiana. Mike Braun for Indiana.com is the website. Senator Braun, thanks so much for joining us, and good luck on Tuesday.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Robinhood is introducing forecast contracts so you can trade the presidential election. Through Robinhood, you can now trade financial derivatives contracts on who will win the U.S. presidential election, Harris or Trump, and watch as contract prices react to real-time market sentiment. Each contract you own will pay $1 on